think the big lesson from last year is that NFTs are like a superior way of monetizing digital media.
Here we go. So yeah, thank you for being here, guys. Just want to say hi to Anil again. Hi Ria, hi Nick, hi Music. Hope you guys are having a good morning.
Yo, thanks for having us, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to, set up a spaces for music NFTs. I know you've been, building your community and working on this like for, a while now. So it's really cool this being the first one I'm joining because music NFTs are definitely like a great topic to start with.
Awesome. So guys who are new here, I just want to give a small introduction about Web3WD. We do these Twitter Spaces every day, and we talk about NFTs, DAOs, DeFi, scaling solutions, and everything that's interesting and everything you generally don't you don't see people talk about. These are the educational Twitter Spaces we do, and if Delphi drops brand new research on a topic, I think we wanted that to be hosted first on our spaces, because it was quite an informative piece, and everything Delphi Digital does is with a lot of research and with a lot of conviction. So I'm really happy this is happening.
Yeah, I think likewise. And honestly, big shout out to Nick, who's also up here. He kind of led the report. We've been working on that for a while now, funny enough. We started that back in October. And full disclosure, I think we're going to be talking about a lot of projects we've either invested in or helped create or advise in the past. So check our disclosures on our site. One project we'll probably talk a lot about today is like Catalog, which we're in the seed round for early last year. And what actually started getting us interested in music NFTs, funny enough, and I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to read that report yet, but if you go on, I remember portal on Delphi Digital, it'll be you can just search music NFTs. We made that report public for anyone to see. About actually like a little over a year ago, we ended up purchasing the disclosure face for with Delphi. And what this did was, these artists disclosure, well known for their song Latch and, a variety of other songs. If you don't listen to them, definitely go on YouTube and, play their circle set. This NFT allowed us to get us and our friends in to their VIP concerts for life. And us at Delphi, when we started, we bootstrapped the company. Disclosure was actually a way that we just were able to focus and just work long hours. So it had a special part in our heart, and we ended up aping into this NFT pretty hard, right? And it was a really cool kind of experience. But what was even more special was within 24 hours, we were in touch with Disclosure, talking to kind of like our, music heroes. And we started kind of seeing the artist side of just how powerful these NFTs were. Already, we're really excited about up and coming artists having this incentive because obviously, I think everyone constantly talks about how unfair kind of the traditional legacy system is right now, where, if you're not someone named Drake or, Adele or Taylor Swift, you're probably not, making a lot of money via streams. But, talking to big artists and seeing, Disclosure's, obviously very successful, right? And they were just telling us some stories about how messed up the music industry was just from their come up. And even at the place that they are now, this is the first time that they actually have full ownership of their music. So, obviously go listen to their old stuff, but I try and stream their new stuff even more because they get, 100% of that money. Whereas whenever Latch gets played, I think they make 12% of that money, which is kind of like a crime in my eyes. And I think, that started getting us even more interested. We started talking to more and more artists. We obviously had a lot of artists who reached out to us and kind of asked us to help with kind of their NFT strategies, their social token strategies, just because of all our work in DeFi with Aave and gaming with Axie and Yield Guild. And some of the conversations we were sitting on were just really scary, right? A lot of these artists and brands that were coming to us, it felt like they just saw this as a fad and they were just going to dump on their fans. So as basically everyone in crypto knows, Delphi is like extremely busy. We have a lot of different arms, but it was almost out of the duty that we started this division of Delphi called Delphi Creative, where now we're working with, two projects. One, basically one of the biggest artists in the world that I can't really share much about, and then another one of like a fan company. That we're helping with their creator strategies. And both of these are pitches. They're very early. We're just happy to be able to have the opportunity to share our crazy ideas because we really don't accept any jobs unless we get full freedom. And we've said no to a lot of people who just kind of want to have a very set thing in their mind and want to dump on their fans. But what was even like more powerful was just how many different artists and how many creatives kind of came to us. And I think what was most exciting about these calls that we were having was like within 30 minutes, we were able to really explain to these artists who had basically, not even put their toes into the pool of crypto yet, and help them understand just how wide the design space was here, right? And I think, obviously we're investors in Catalog, where we actually like have helped advise Sound XYZ, really good friends with David in the past. And one thing that was like, and I love those platforms, obviously kind of like talking against my bags here, but like, I think, all these artists that are coming in, they immediately say, okay, the playbook is to drop on Sound, then to drop on Catalog or, vice versa, etc. And I think what was most exciting about, for us was like when we were talking to some of these artists, like there's so much more design space to be played with here, where obviously you can use a platform like Sound and Catalog to help. Like, for example, we're close with Joe K and the Selection team. These are kind of like legendary curation label, and they recently leveraged Sound XYZ for a very unique drop, right? And to give you guys some context, basically Selection is very well known for having this like weekly radio show where they play like very deep kind of crate digging kind of like songs that like you literally are just like, where did Joe K even find this stuff? And he became very well known for it. He did a special episode that he minted on Sound where it was an hour-long episode and he played a variety of different artists. And I think they raised around 100 grand from this mint. They sold 333 NFTs at 0.1 ETH each. And immediately afterwards, the money raised was distributed straight up to every artist that they played. And then Joe K and Selection got a curator fee. And I think like when you hear stories about this, from the crypto perspective, it like is almost obvious. You're like, yeah, of course, this is like what we're building towards. But when you start telling the creatives and artists who aren't in this world yet and maybe don't care about things like DeFi or things like, Axie Infinity, this is something that really speaks to them. And I think, what we're really excited about both at Delphi and what I'm honestly excited to spend most of this space is talking about is this DAO that a lot of my, friends and I who are up here are starting called Music. What we're really excited about is creating a check on these legacy systems, and these incentives are just so powerful for artists to come here. And I think you already saw last year was like the year NFTs took the world by storm. What was really like beautiful about that moment was it brought culture on chain, and I think culture is like this invaluable asset that like people constantly underestimate. And I also think within culture, people underestimate how important music is to culture. And I think anyone who's like a music nerd, anyone who's very into music, can kind of like agree with that irrationality. So yeah, I mean, we're really excited about the space. This whole report that, Nick and I kind of like, put out was meant to say, hey, we are really excited, but there is a lot of hype right now. And I think we need to start challenging the builders in the space, because just like we saw in DeFi and NFTs, you have these crazy hype cycles. But what's most exciting is all the builders and all the primitives that come out of those hype cycles. And these this hype cycle that's going to happen in music NFTs, right? And obviously this is not financial advice, etc. I just really do think it's like a no-brainer that something like this will exist. I don't know at what scale, I don't know which artist, etc. But I think the hype cycle that does occur in the coming year or 2 years, I just really hope that we keep pushing the space forward, and there's something to show from it after. And, after this hype cycle, you don't just flick the lights on and we're just standing around exactly where we are today. So that was really like the essence of the report. That's why it actually took us so long to really we could have been even earlier and dropping this in October and kind of frontline even, I know there's a lot of people out there tweeting music NFTs are going to change the world, etc. We agree, but it's like, okay, but like, now that we agree with that, what's the next step? Let's start actually figuring out how it does change the world is kind of, the approach that we took, and obviously the approach that Delphi tries to take with every sector that we try and focus in on. So hopefully that's given a little bit of context on the report we dropped. Definitely highly recommend everyone, checking it out. And Nick, maybe you want to, jump in and say a few words.
No, I think you touched on all the important pieces, but yeah, I think the context on the report, like we realized that like the hype on Twitter, especially crypto Twitter around this stuff, might be kind of ahead of the reality. If we are sometimes like crypto's biggest critics, and we try to be very critical about the state of music NFTs. I mean, I think like in the grand scheme, as Anil said, like monetizing culture is a very powerful thing. I think the big lesson from last year is that NFTs are like a superior way of monetizing digital media. And if you kind of think about the numbers of just, how music runs today, how many fans there are, and how poorly it's monetized, it seems like a no-brainer that this will unlock a lot. But on the other hand, it's really early. Like, the numbers on some of, these platforms, a couple million in total sales is like, a tiny fraction of like the 100 million in volume that's seen on, a good day on OpenSea. So, we're bullish, but at the same time, it's still very early. I think I want to stress that point.
One thing I'll say that's a challenge with music. Also, thank you guys so much for having us on. And yeah, highly recommend everyone to follow Delphi Digital. Anil and Nick did an amazing job with the report. It's like it's literally the music NFT Bible. But I think, like one challenge with music relative to other forms of culture and media is that music has never been directly monetized in Web 2, so consumers don't spend money anymore on, like, they don't think about how much money they're spending when they're streaming a song. Everything is indirect. It's either, oh, we're going to a show, or we're buying merch, or, we're buying into a brand that some mainstream artist has created. So I think going into this, transition with music NFTs, it's like, how do we change the framework through which collectors and fans approach music and say, okay, this is art that has value, standalone value, and it should be directly monetized.
This podcast was possible because of our sponsors, Brave and Unstoppable Domains. More about them next. Crypto scams are like box of chocolates. You never know which one you're gonna get. Especially if you're using a crypto wallet, which is a browser extension. You run the risk of attacks like phishing scams, account spoofing, data leaks, and theft. The best way to avoid getting attacked is using Brave Wallet. Brave Wallet is the first secure crypto wallet built directly into a browser, so no extensions required. With Brave Wallet, you can buy, store, send, and swap assets. You can even manage your portfolio and NFTs all in one place. Whether you're new to crypto or a seasoned pro, it's time to switch to Brave Wallet. Download Brave at brave.com/web3WD and click the wallet icon to get started. You know what's the worst part about crypto? These long and complex wallet addresses. They can get so confusing. I know, you hate them too. What if I told you I replaced my long wallet address with dheerajshah.nft? Yeah, that's my name. All thanks to Unstoppable Domains. They're the #1 providers of NFT domains. With Unstoppable Domains, you don't have to worry about renewal fees because you get to keep your NFT domain forever. You can get an NFT domain as well, maybe a .crypto, .nft.x, or something else. Go to unstoppabledomains.com right now and get your NFTs for as low as $5. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, and I love how everyone just went into it and set a lot of context for us. But I would like to ask open question, Nick. Maybe you can answer this, or anyone. Why has it taken so long for music NFTs to pop up, or they have not even popped off yet? My theory is hey, uh, JPEGs or art is very easily you can show it off as a DP unless you're buying disclosure face, which you guys did, and Anil is wearing it. But what about music NFTs, right? Why has it taken so much time? Because if you even see traditionally, we don't care about art as much. Your report says there are only 10,000 people buying super expensive artwork, but a lot of people are consuming a lot of music. They're buying merch, they're buying tickets and whatnot. So how did in Web3, how did this flip?
Well, I'm not sure it's flipped yet. I mean, I think music hasn't caught on, quite at all at the same scale as JPEG NFTs, partly because of this complicated history. So, as I noted in the report, music firstly has all these gatekeepers and copyright laws that make it difficult to even display a song. So any playback of a song is technically copyright enforceable. The supply chain is a little bit different. So, the typical artist is very accustomed to selling directly to a buyer. In a gallery, it's a pretty straightforward, fee-based transaction. But music, the artists are constantly basically faced with a middleman. So they're not ever going directly to the consumer. They're going directly to Spotify, who's going directly to the consumer. And I think it also just kind of mirrors in some ways, memes on the internet. Things kind of started with JPEGs at first, and now we have, video memes and all sorts of other things as, we've gotten more fidelity and bandwidth and things like that. I think it's just early days on a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I think that's kind of why the visual arts were the first place this is taken on. But as I kind of note, there's a lot of reasons to think that it will flip in perhaps in short order.
Yeah, I think Nick nailed that. One thing I'll add is and I got this thesis wrong, but I'll share it. PFPs, and I think Dheeraj, you were actually circling this thesis as well. Is PFP is so easy to share, right? And I think one way that I think about digital real estate right now, I'm not talking about Axie land or crypto unicorns land or anything like that. I'm talking about the real estate on your Twitter profile. It's your avatar, it's your banner, and your bio, right? And I think PFPs just took off because it was the most valuable real estate. It's the New York City of your Twitter is your avatar. I personally thought that the banner behind people was going to take off as its own kind of NFT arts kind of sector too, whether that's a Fidenza or some art blocks or something like that. But I think I probably got that wrong, or maybe it's just still has yet to play out. Music NFTs, where is that real estate for music NFTs, right? And I think that's it. Everything Nick said is totally accurate. I think all the hassles of an artist getting the copyright to be able to share music, etc., is one. But let's just pretend that you have an artist that is doesn't even have to factor that in. Just an artist actually on this panel, Kilroy, he's part of MoriimusicDAO. He's been producing for 7-8 years now, and he's never not felt confident, but never felt oh man, I'm gonna start dropping this on the legacy systems, because it was just how do you even make a dent there? And even if you do make a dent, you take home pennies, right? But I've obviously got him involved in crypto for a while now, but as he started seeing this Web3 and music movement started taking shape, it was just no brainer for him to be okay, now this is where I kind of can finally share my talent with the world, right? And so we're really excited. He's actually doing a drop in 30 minutes. So I'll probably have to dial off because I'm going to want to bid on that. But I think pretend someone like Kilroy, who has complete ownership of his record, never even talked to a label, right? How does he actually present his music in a way, or have his collectors present their music in a way where everyone will know, other than their collectors sharing it, or someone having to navigate to someone's OpenSea or catalog, etc. Like a platform. So I think that is also a question that I think a lot about. In a lot of the pitches we get in the music NFT space, and I think Nick can back me up here, we see a lot of music NFT pitches, and like I really do, I'm rooting for the industry, but there's just a lot of trash being pitched right now. I do question the teams that are like, thinking in this vein and start thinking about that, because I think the collecting aspect is going to be huge. The primary market is still very, very small, and it's just getting started. But I think what's even scary is like the secondary market is like just starting to exist, but it's very like limited too, right? And I think for a lot of these collectors who are coming into the market, you're gonna need them to believe that they can flip this, because like it or not, people are buying some of these things to make money. Obviously, some people are buying it to support artists like Mori Music, etc. But a lot of people who are going to want to come into the space are going to want to be able to at least tell themselves that they can get returns long term. And I think my favorite part about this too, by the way, is it's going to be like a Trojan horse, because like once they start collecting this stuff, it's going to be very similar to the PFP movement, where people aren't going to be flipped because they're going to end up like having an attachment to that community, that artist, etc. And so even though I think it's like important, I think it's like an ends to a mean, like a means to an end. So I think that's one aspect that I think about too, is like, what is the real estate where we can show off music NFTs, and what is that experience like? And I think like that's going to be a lot of fun, honestly, because like obviously Delphi is known as a gaming fund. One thing I'm really excited about is gamifying both music creation and music digestion, right? And I think you see kind of like the bare bones of this with apps like Spotify, but even Spotify, who I'm a power user of, obviously, but like they're moving so slow relative to what I think like a crypto driven kind of like hungry startup is, right? Like this industry, we have teams that work harder than any other industry because they're just so passionate and so driven. And it's honestly just like not work to a lot of people here. It's just like more so play. So I'm super excited once people kind of start applying themselves and start trying to figure out how they can solve these problems, because I think you're going to start seeing music become a much, much, much bigger day of every life. And then eventually you're going to like crypto is going to unlock kind of like an open source music creation, kind of like make it like the Lego blocks as it should be. And I think what's amazing to me is like, and selfishly is like, I think this leads to like the biggest music renaissance we've ever had in history, right? Because no longer do you have to spend hours or years trying to learn how to play a violin, XYZ. Already over the past decade or two, people have been able to make amazing, beautiful music via their computers, but now the collaboration aspect is about to be completely unlocked. So I'm just really excited about it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Anil. And like this is what you were excited about, but I would like to know from other speakers as well, right? Like, what is the most that excites you about music NFTs, from as a creator, as a collector, as a researcher?
Yeah, I could speak from the artist's perspective because I think there's a lot of obvious things that make it really enticing for an artist to want to step into this space, mainly the monetary side of it, which is obviously a huge part of what we're trying to do with Mori, is like help artists fund their career so they can focus on just making music and their passion, and that's it. I think the other thing for artists as well, it's kind of a cheat code, as far as, at least in my experience so far and watching other artists kind of come up in the space, a cheat code into like finding this like cultish community that already exists online. They're already looking at this stuff. They're looking for artists who are willing to interact and experiment in this space that isn't fully built out yet, but there's enough there to play around with. I think that's something else from the artist perspective that's really, really exciting. Again, speaking from my own experience, never releasing music in kind of a Web2 space, there's that feeling of dropping into a vacuum and like, what's the point of putting this out and coming to this space again that's already engaged, looking for this sort of thing. It's a way that I think you could totally change the trajectory of your career as an artist, and that's something beyond the monetary piece of it that, again, at Mori, we're really, really focused on, is like, how can we tap into community building in a way that drives a lot of value to move the space forward through collaboration, and individually on the artist level to again allow them to do what they want to do, if that makes sense.
What's been exciting to me, both from talking to artists and from a fan perspective, is this idea that, in Web3, you're no longer optimizing for like a one size fits all model where, you're catering to mainstream audiences, and basically you're trying to fit yourself to appeal to this box that is what the mainstream deems as popular and successful. And now, artists have the creative control to find who their subset of maybe 100, 1,000 truth fans are, that want them to be their most authentic self and want them to put their most, creative foot forward and really push the bounds of what they're capable of. And I think it can hopefully unlock so much more creativity and experimentation in the type of content that artists put out, but also how they put out that content and the form factors and how they engage with their fans. That's what excites me.
I think maybe more selfishly, as kind of like a music nerd, maybe like a part-time music critic of sorts. I've been reading Pitchfork since high school and watching Anthony Fantano and others, and just have been, somebody who feels like I have a handle on music more than pretty much any other art. When I watched the whole PFP wave happen and I was seeing, the art that I didn't really love that was, flying up to, 25, 45 ETH, I was wondering, like, man, like, I don't have any edge here. I have no idea, how to forecast this. But I think music, and maybe this just, in the plain numbers that I discovered, there's just a lot more people who love music. And I think like the game of, being a collector and being recognized as like a curator of sorts is pretty enticing. And I think that broadly with NFTs, collectors are the new curators. There's really no institutions in the way of, making a name for yourself as an expert collector. I mean, I think, watching some names like DC Investor or G Money or others kind of like properly read the tea leaves on the PFP wave, it's kind of inspiring. It's something I feel like I couldn't do myself in visual arts, but I could do in music. And like kind of similar to, on that end, just like the music, like the superior financial infrastructure of crypto just makes a lot of sense. I think the sense I got talking to a lot of musicians, especially who are tinkering in Web3, is that the best part is you don't really wonder when the check will come in the mail. You just get it as soon as it changes hands or you sell your piece. It's kind of a whole different world, and it's much more transparent. And I kind of like that. I think, both of those pieces are extremely exciting to me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so someone who has zero clue about music NFTs, and who are listening, be it as an artist or as a collector, whatever, what platforms do you recommend to look into to start with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, full disclosure here, some of these might be Delphi investments, or platforms that we've actually helped advise in the past. But it's a small niche, so it's hard to even navigate without talking something that we've helped with yet. So yeah, there are a couple of staples, right? I think catalog and sound are the two that come to mind the most. Both of them take very different approaches, but they're both very important to the ecosystem. I think right now, catalog sells one of one NFTs. And sound sells editions. And when they first started, sound just started in December, and their growth has just been just incredible to watch. Big kudos to David and the team there, because these guys just don't stop, and they just keep building, right? And they started with 20 editions for season one, and since then they've kind of really changed that. And I think Snoop Dogg recently did a sound, and I think I might get this wrong. I think that was 1,000. Selection did 333. You have other artists that are hopping on board for a mint soon. Kilroy is going to be on there soon, and that's really exciting to me personally. So these are two kind of platforms that I think are worth looking in. there's an interesting way to think about investing in music NFTs though right now, and I think it's actually mirroring a lot of what you saw in the art NFT and PFP space, where people are buying like one of ones, right? Like, but not buying one of ones, but buying early mints of artists that they think are just like consistently grinding and working in this space and innovating, not even just from the music perspective. They might collect artists that they don't even think are as like the music is amazing. They're just like, man, this artist is working really hard, and I think this artist is going to make waves, keep innovating, etc. And I think that's definitely a good way to invest. Me personally, I like doing a little bit of both, and trying to blend it where I really do, and I think this is the way that Mori kind of operates. And we can definitely get into like what Mori's doing here, but we try and invest in artists that we really do love and think the music is incredible, but are also kind of innovating. And there's different types of innovation. And we've talked to so many artists on both the Delphi and Mori side, where there's so many artists out there that they're not going to want to be in a Discord and constantly talk to their community and constantly get advice from their community of what song they should make next, or what song they should release, or what album cover they should use. Because like these artists have their own integrity and kind of like, have a pulse on that. And I think it's important to be okay with those artists. And I think, at Mori, we're definitely going to be like onboarding a lot of, both small names, but also big names that don't want to, create a Discord and constantly kind of like engage with their community, because they're more so internal. They're more introverts that like all the music comes from them. And I don't think that should stop the community from kind of forming around kind of the vision of that artist and helping that artist in any way. So that's one way I think about it. And I think, one thing that we're going to be launching in on Mori soon, which by the way, I think one of the tweets shared here, you can kind of follow us, and I would put tweet alerts on because we're about to come out of stealth. We've been in stealth for a very long time, mostly because we've just been collecting, and we haven't seen a need to bring too many other people in, because the space was, we thought was moving nicely, but now we think it's a point where Mori can actually help organize a lot of the people who want to contribute. So to give you some context for that, one, we're going to be launching like some media type stuff, very similar to like a mini Delphi model, right? Where we'll have very in-depth kind of content to help people understand why we are collecting certain NFTs, as well as what other NFTs are being put out and what innovation is. So both artists and collectors can follow. And, most of us at Mori are, collectors at heart and big music nerds at heart, but we kind of have a couple people kind of leading the content division right now, which is Kilroy, who's on this panel. He's leading it from an artist perspective. So he just dropped his first catalog song, this month, and he documented every step of that. Then he's doing a second job literally in the next 20 minutes. He's documenting that step too. He's going to be doing a sound job. He's documenting that. And we're going to be sharing this with every artist we onboard. So we have like very, very easy guides where it's like anyone can do this, right? And it doesn't take up any of their time, etc. Then on the flip side, we have someone who couldn't make the call, but it's like a prolific investor who's been on the come up recently, Roski.eth. He is like a collector that is aped into a lot of like very promising artists. And what he does really well is like follow ups with every artist afterwards. He literally, and this is kind of the Mori mentality, is like, we're going to ape into music NFTs. We're going to pay the artists to help them, right? And I think these artists are going to start almost getting shocked, because it's like they've always had to give up percentages, always had to sign contracts, always had to give up something on their end to have people help them. And meanwhile, I think what's going to be amazing about these collectives that are starting, and I think NoiseDAO and Unicorn are both our peers, and we really love that these are starting to exist. But the approach we're taking with Mori is to literally buy these artists NFTs, show them that, hey, we are prescribing value to this. And honestly, we're probably still underpaying, even if we're paying you 10, 12 grand for a song that you made in an hour or two. Because it's like, that hour that you took to make that song, it was like, years of hard work that let you, create something that good. And then we're going to work for you. And then watch what we do. And, so far in Mori, we're starting soon with the Genesis 25, and we have a lot of people who have obviously reached out who want to contribute. And I think the way that we're doing it a little different than other DAOs, especially in the music space, are one, the contribution is going to be like 10 ETH each or something like that. But more than that, the 10 ETH contribution is the smallest because one, it's a smaller contribution than some of the other DAOs. But the biggest contribution that people will have is they have to work. It's going to be a job. So you're literally contributing money to work, and we know it's not going to be for everyone. So like, if you don't think you can set aside some time to help with this, and obviously I think, all of us in the Genesis group of Mori are already like really busy, but we're just really believe in this feature, and we believe that it's a very high impact thing for us to set aside at least 30% of our time every week to just focus on helping this space progress in any way we can, even if that's just aping in a artist that we believe in, and then just helping them afterwards. So we're going to be tweeting out a link probably in the next 7 days, and it's going to be an application. And basically via this application, you're going to be able to say, okay, we're looking for certain roles, like a community manager, for example, maybe even someone like lawyers or something like this. Right now, we have a very good group. We have someone very high up at Spotify, for example, because when we talk to artists and ask, why do you sign a label nowadays? One of the biggest answers we got was, oh, I want to be on a label because they can get me on the Spotify playlist. And that's kind of like the real estate that you need to like, go for as an artist nowadays. So what did we do? We said, okay, obviously we're not going to be able to like, have a label that like, does all this. We went and found someone who works very high up at Spotify, has a very good connection to the teams there, and is still very interested in music NFTs, and is now going to be part of the Genesis group of Mori. Obviously, it's not going to be guaranteed that every artist that we buy on Mori is going to end up being on Spotify's playlist, but we at least have an inroads for you to be to get your music out in front of these people and these teams. That's just part of an example. There's so many different ways for people to add value. So once we have this application out, please fill it out. We're gonna pick people by the next few weeks for the Genesis 25. We already have 10 people locked in and have a couple dozen applicants without even tweeting the link out, right? Just people DMing us saying, hey, we're just really interested in what Mori's vision is, and we just want to learn more. And obviously, if you go on our profile, you can see we're just totally in stealth right now. But I think, in the next 30 days, you'll start seeing the emergence of Mori. And we're really excited to get the Core 25 in. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up for a lot more people, right? Season 0 is just the Core 25. Season 1 will be much, much more than that.
Wow, that sounds super interesting, and even I might apply because I like the space. So looking forward, I'll share the link across in all my channels when it's out. So looking forward for that. Again, just before we take a question, Sinkami, just give me a few minutes. So basically, I think you answered, but I just want to hear it from you guys. How can Mori or Delphi help indie musicians get into the music NFTs, this thing, right? What are your plans? What is your vision to onboard a lot more indie artists who could be probably like a niche somewhere and whatnot?
Yeah, I think the best part about that answer is we've already been doing it in stealth, right? Like we've already onboarded a lot of artists that maybe people don't even realize Mori has had behind the scenes help with. And again, we're not looking for credit or anything here. Literally for us, it's selfish. We just want to help music and the music industry. So it's very it's just a lot of fun with some of my closest friends to be able to be building this space. But yeah, like I said, the content arm I think is just going to make it very easy to understand how the music NFT is progressing. And I think creating this shared collective intelligence with the space is the only thing we can do to help move the space forward, right? Because I think everyone right now is building in a silo. And while it's exciting, I think the only time people share things with each other is when they're trying to shield the recent music NFT they dropped, right? Or a Twitter thread that they did on music NFTs or something like that. We need to progress from that, right? We need people to create primitives. We need to create things that can actually help people build in this space rather than just chill in this space. And I think, that's going to be our biggest focus in Mori. And that's why we have been in stealth because, we think actions speak louder than words. So while we haven't tweeted much, we've been working very hard for a while now.
Awesome.
I think just to add to that quickly, as Anil said, we've had conversations with so many artists that have taken so many different approaches to releasing music via music NFTs and building communities in the space. And, we can kind of take best practices that we've gleaned from those conversations and help new artists identify, okay, what should be our strategy going forward. And I think, Kilroy, you should talk about that a little bit too, and how what you're doing is to create this playbook for artists to fall back on and learn about, and identify bits and pieces that resonate with them. And then the other thing I'll say is, for artists that are new and haven't ever released anything as a music NFT, like Mori Music is going to be essentially their buyer of first resort. Like, they have a buyer there ready to support them with capital and with lessons that we've learned, with knowledge, to help them have the most seamless transition. And not just that, with a community of fans that are like ready to support them and amplify their message. Like that is the value of Mori Music. And also, I think one thing that we're trying to do as we build out the core team of Mori Music is to bring people who not only have experience in crypto, but have experience in Web 2 and have those connections in Web 2, because for the foreseeable future, it's not going to be one or the other. You're going to have to play both games. And that is how we want to add value to these artists that we're onboarding and investing in.
Yeah, and I just, if I can add one quick thing, I think another really powerful piece of it, the community that's already here, and bringing a community of fans. I think that's all really important. I think the artist community is something else that I'm particularly really interested in, and making sure that artists in the space are leaning on each other. As we kind of watch the space scale around us and new opportunities get unlocked. Because again, that is something that even in my very, very brief experience recently, having just dropped my first song a couple of weeks ago, that's been a huge kind of North Star for me, is being able to lean on, people who, whether they're reaching out for support or, asking what's going on, hopping on calls, seeing like what direction that, I'm taking things, what, Mori is up to. It's a huge driver, and makes you want to keep going. Someone that's listening in on this call, I see now, Misfit. I think that's how you pronounce that. I love that dude. He's like the first person that reached out to me after I, sent a tweet out to like 0 followers and resonated so much with, kind of my message and kind of like the vision behind the project that I'm releasing right now, where every song that, I release, whatever I raise from the NFT drop, I'm reinvesting 100% of that back into the music NFT community and other artists' music NFTs. And for me, that again is like, trying to rally artists around each other. And Misfit was, so down with that he literally gifted me one of his NFTs that was up on Catalog just because he was, down with the vision so much. And like stuff like that is super powerful to me. And seeing that there's people out there that care that much is, again, I think, if the artists band together, and it's not this thing where everyone's looking for that number one spot, or everyone's looking for, I want to do, the most sales or the most whatever. Like, people should have that goal, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get artists paid at the end of the day. But again, artists like kind of banding together and pushing this space forward collaboratively is, again, a huge part of what we want to do with Mori.
Yeah, I love that. Dheeraj, I know we only have like 12 minutes left. I mean, I guess we can go on forever. I just got to hop in 12 minutes, but yeah. It seems like we've actually got a few people who've come up. They aren't part of Mori yet, right? So we'd love to hear from them, because obviously they have something to say, and more than happy to take questions, or even just like keep it as a casual conversation, because should be fun. And anyone else who wants to join up here, feel free to request, and we can kind of go one by one.
Yeah, Sinkami, go for it.
What's up? So I hopped in here because this space is just just a wonderful space to just be a community and just learn, hear different perspectives. I hopped in here. Shout out Cash 333. That's the homeboy. He's also a musician himself. He's actually came out with some like some music on the blockchain. So check him out as well. But I came in on the notion of talking about what you guys are talking about, and I was taking some notes. So basically, I was hearing people talk about like like music, trying to get music out there. And one thing I would just like to say is it's about the community, right? It's about getting out there. It's about being active. It's about being truly active, though, like hopping out of your comfort zone and trying to grow. Because that's, if you want your music to do that, you are your music, right? So you are you are the face of your music, right? So you want to get out there and you want to make sure that you are getting your face known, but you're also being humble, and you're also spreading love, and you're also spreading positivity. And it's not like a like a I'm gonna make it mindset. It's we're all gonna make it mindset, like wagging me, like literally.
Yeah.
Um, literally,
Yeah.
because that's literally what it's about. And another note I had was about how like this Web3 space is basically giving artists the direct to consumer, and the direct to artist like standpoint, to where you didn't really have that beforehand, right? You had to, you went through the producers, and then you went through everybody else. But in this Web3 game, right, in these NFTs, you have a direct tie to the artist, right? You can literally talk to the artist. You can express your viewpoints. You never know what magic that can induce in this space, because we're all creatives, right? So if you give us the proper fuel, you give us some love and something, like we will make that blossom and bloom. So just to have that asset is just really cool. The next point is about like the galleries, right? We have to utilize galleries that are available to us, because galleries are not only showcase art, they showcase the music, right? So I'm a clone.
Yeah.
Clone next, and we have our artifact pods, right? Our space pods. And we can put all kinds of stuff in our space pods. You can deck it out any way you like it. Like you can customize it. You can have your music flowing in there, and it could be like a showroom, right? To where you can go up to different pieces and it plays your music. And I just really feel like that's something that's not really heard of in the music space, because that's just something that Artifact is trying to do. They're trying to make a whole ecosystem out here, and like those pods are really dope. I would say check it out.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Dheeraj, maybe if you can share that link afterwards too, because that sounds really cool. One thing I think I want to push back on, though, that you just said was like, I totally agree. It is about community, but I don't think we should keep pushing all the efforts for community development and everything to the artist, right? Like,
No,
at the end of the day, I think it's about the music, like, right?
yeah,
And some of my favorite artists, like if you look at someone like Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, this guy's never gonna talk to his, he doesn't want. He's very introvert. He doesn't even talk to his wife, right? Like he makes all his music by himself, and he's never gonna like open source that. And I think that's fine. I think that's totally okay. What if the fans around it, and if the fans around it want to build a community and help the artists in any ways they can, I think that's already happening. I think crypto just helps organize that in a much, much, much better way. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. And I think there are some artists that like part of their brand is being very responsive to the community, right? Like yourself, it sounds like your friend and Kilroy as well. But I do want like the whole space to stop like forcing artists to build a community, because it's like that they're not here to build a community. They're here to make music and keep making that music and get value from it. Yeah, that's I do agree with most of what you said, though. But that's the one thing I just want to like clarify. I push back on.
most definitely. I just feel like not necessarily getting like community mixed up with like cult or anything like that. I'm saying like like a community basis. Like everything needs a community. I mean, it's not like you have to always talk to the community or anything like that, but everything needs to have a pool, a base of something, a foundation of sorts, right? Because
I get it,
yeah,
right? You're just talking about like a channel for open communication, like so something can grow. Like if not the artist, then maybe right, like someone else is there, and like they can have that conversation and sum it up and tell back to the artist later. Maybe that could work, right? There's no one fixed model. Lucas, I would like to Luca, sorry. I would like to take your question, or you if you want to add something.
Yeah, and first and foremost, this space has been amazing. I really like what we were talking about earlier. Anil, you said that there has to be, like, in the beginning, there was a lot of emphasis on community building for artists, which makes sense. But I think we're going to stand towards a direction where, artists who are not necessarily naturally good at doing that will have a shot as well. And I was just kind of curious as to, like, how are you guys planning to foster that with Mori Music?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like community development needs to be organic. So like even someone like Mori, when we collect, will be part of the community, but it's not going to be like a community surrounded by every, for that specific artist. We will just be one piece of it, and it's up to the artist's music to really touch enough people to actually gather people to care enough to do. Like everyone in the world is like fucking busy nowadays, right? So it's like if someone's gonna take out the time to like help build something for someone else, it needs to really touch them. And then once you get that relationship, I think it's kind of like there's no real ceiling to kind of like where that community can take it. But I think it is like it's a tough question to answer, but I don't think it's something that the artists need to think about that much. And I do think, you said, it started as community based. I think it's just getting started. I think this community type artist and community driven artist is still gonna, just getting started and gonna keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I don't think we should be closing off the artists that don't want to do that or who aren't good at that or just wanna, still engage with the space, but not necessarily have to constantly check their, because like, right now it works because there's like a couple dozen, maybe a couple hundred max collectors. And so like, you can talk to basically all your committed collectors. The whole thesis here is that this space does balloon. Like no artist is going to want, like, I wouldn't want to be in touch with thousands of people constantly DMing me like, oh man, you should do this next. You should do, oh man, this song was good, but you should have changed it this way. That's going to be so fucking annoying, right? For an artist. So like, I think we just need to be more open-minded. And I think, one way that Mori is going to help doing this is like, just collecting artists we really love. And if they don't if they don't even tweet that they did the music NFT, that's fine for us because we just really like the song, right? And I think this kind of goes back to kind of the Delphi thesis of why we invested in catalog, which is like, this is actually like one of the quotes they put on their first of their page of their deck, which was, in the past, owning something that no one else owns was extremely valuable. But I think in the future, owning something that everyone else like owns is going to be even more valuable, right? So, like my thesis here is like Mori's going to collect some songs that these artists may never even start a Discord, may never even tweet about the music NFTs often enough. But if they hustle as hard as they do, like as most artists do, to make their songs well known, and they break like a Billboard 100 or just become very popular in a certain niche, then that NFT in itself should have more value as a record, right? That receipt. So yeah, really excited about that. But yeah, I think that was a really good question.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great insight. And I think it's something like, not anyone talks about because it's always been about like, community. This is also interesting take. So Jedi Small, go for it. Quick question. Has to leave. So we'll try to.
Hi guys. Thank you. I love the passion in the space. Part of what I'm seeing is the difference between running a music label and, really coming up with a new system for music and artists. And the key is getting artists paid. And, music labels, a traditional business, done a lot of different things. That's going to obviously change with NFTs, etc. Radio play. The big one used to be ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. That's why artists went to labels. So when radio played their music, they could get paid. There's billions of dollars of unpaid music money in those coffers. And whoever figures out the system to pay the artist directly will make the money. And hopefully they will, do it in a way, that's takes advantage of all the resources that we have, with blockchain. And one of the things that I've thought would make sense is everyone takes ideas from someone else. So in this DNA, for every artist to put in a past payment to an old person and make a kind of a waterfall cascade of, rights and payments for the future. I think whoever can design that, put that in, and, let it really be open source. That's the mechanics of the underlying fundamental of the music industry. And then the rest is kind of like a label.
Yep, I think that's a great point. I will take one last question before, if that's fine with you, Anil, from Steve. And then, if you guys, Ria, Nick, Kilroy, if you guys want to stick around, take a few more questions, that's fine. But Steve, go for it.
Great. Thanks for this talk and for what you published recently. I really appreciated how you do put a focus on how we're really in a primitive stage and that there's a lot of primitives to be built. But with that in mind, when I look at like the thesis points you have of where the space can go when it comes to building social graphs and super fan engagements and creating artist and fan relationships, those are all things that are really hard to get even larger artist teams to buy into with really established tools like whatever Klaviyo or other email marketing systems, and just keeping track and being able to deliver on what they promise to fans. So I'm kind of wondering where you see we're at in terms of having tools that are good enough to compete with that, because artists, certainly at many levels, only have so much time and so much money to put into developing any of those tools and experiences and skill sets. And as someone who professionally tries to get people onto these established tools, and I'm super interested in what Web3 has to promise, it's hard to make a use case to them. So I'm kind of wondering that perspective of how to approach this.
I think you're kind of... Go ahead, Anil.
Go ahead, Nick.
All right, I'll quickly say that as I kind of identified in this report, I think like the playbooks and the people who are gonna playbooks to follow and the people to really be adopting a lot of this Web3 stuff is going to be indie and unsigned artists who are up and coming, who don't necessarily have the followings, the tools, the label resources. I think they're the ones to watch as this scene develops. And I think you're right that they're, the bigger names maybe are already kind of hamstrung as it is, even in Web 2. I think you're totally right there. But I think like with the superior data and payments infrastructure that crypto provides, like there is going to be more I guess juice to be squeezed out of these fan interactions and things like that. I still think that the social graphs and things like that you were talking about earlier, I think those are still valuable pieces in this puzzle, especially as the scene develops. Maybe more on like a 10-year time span, but it's going to be the people who probably have the smallest followings who are going to know how to play this the best.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that Nick and I talked over each other to give this answer, because this is something that we, everyone at Mori talks about a lot, but Nick and I have spent way too much time talking about just like looking at pitches. The answer is it's still so early, right? And I think Nick and I really do think that incentivizing artists going forward is like really, we do work with some pretty big artists, etc. And I think they can honestly do that work mostly because it's out of duty. We think that if these artists go the wrong way and do something bad, it's just bad for crypto as a whole. So it's really just helping them, and we'll definitely onboard some users, definitely. But really, it's like the artists coming up, right? That are constantly engaging with the space, constantly pushing it forward, doing different types of drops, and just like taking advantage of all the incentives here, right? Like you do have, the primary use case of crypto right now, and this is coming from one of its biggest advocates, is still speculation. Like there's no way to get around that, and that's something that every project, every team should take to their advantage to build what they are trying to build long term. And same thing with artists who are trying to build and make money so they can keep creating the art that they want to make. And I think over time, when you have enough content on chain and enough content that's being published from here, kind of like from the first principles, then you can potentially get this flipping where a platform like that and all these tools make sense. And the cool part about it is like everything that's being published, right, like is already on chain. So it doesn't have to be built, like the platform's going to be built afterwards, right? So it's like, Delphi, we're investors in a tool called Zapper for DeFi. They built an aggregator afterwards, after all these DeFi protocols, and they can just integrate these in afterwards. This is kind of like my favorite part about crypto, where as on the legacy systems, like, you have to go to Spotify or be on an internal team at Spotify to get their API. And I know artists don't even get enough insight into like where their fans are, etc. I think crypto can be, much different than that. And it doesn't have to start being different right now, because it by its very nature, the infrastructure is. But yeah, I think that was a really great question. I actually I'm a few minutes late to this next call, but really appreciate you setting up the spaces, Dheeraj. I think a few action items, if anyone's like, has, enjoyed this talk. One, go follow Mori Music, right? We'll have more information there. Go read that Delphi post that, Nick and I just put out. Follow Kilroy and ape into the NFT that he literally just launched. I don't know, Kilroy, did you just drop that? Because I'm going to go listen to that now, if so.
Yeah, that's out now.
Amazing. Yeah, Dheeraj, maybe you can share the link to that, because I'm going to be a little bit more late to the next call just to listen to that. But yeah, really appreciate all the time, everyone. And yeah, I mean, just seeing how many people showed up to this like ad hoc talk, which Dheeraj kind of like messed up the spaces link, is already just makes me even more bullish on kind of like the direction of the space. So yeah, just really appreciate everyone's taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Anil. And guys, go follow Anil, go follow Delphi, go follow Mori before he leaves. And if you learned anything on this space, go and share and tag all of us. So, we have some feedback loop for it. All right, guys. Good night. Take care.